Hi, welcome to Talk About here on Shaw TV North Island. My name is John Twigg, and today we're going to talk about the Campbell River Food Bank with founding president, President Lynn Nash and founding director Diane Patterson. Thank you both for coming in.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
So,
Good to be here.
when was the founding?
It started back in 1985, and there was a steering committee, mostly men, and I was the token woman.
Back in the 80s?
In the 80s, 85, and in February and March that year, we met every week to organize this. It had been suggested by the ministerial in town and others, and we had a grant from the United Way in Vancouver.
Wow.
So we got started. We had a big meeting at the DI in May, I believe, March or April, May of that year, and started the food bank.
Yeah. I gather the churches then had been doing kind of a form of this beforehand?
Oh, I'm sure they were.
Yeah.
I mean, not a food bank per se, but they've always
Doing
helped
hampers.
people that were in dire need, and
Yeah.
struggling. So,
Yeah.
and still do for that matter.
Yes, very much so.
So,
Lynn, when did you get involved?
Oh, Diane and I were there right from the beginning,
Yeah.
and Bob Sparks and Jack Torrance. I think Morgan Osler was in it for a little while, and as Diane said, a lot of the pastors in town were very much involved. And,
Yeah.
it was a bit of an economic downturn at that time, and we felt that we would try and help folks for a couple of years, maybe.
That's right. It was a temporary
Yeah.
organization
Where was it located?
We
on 10th Avenue.
Yeah, we
So-
started on 10th Avenue, right next to Family Services there,
Okay.
and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and we moved several times.
Yeah. Your present location is on 16th in Campbellton?
16th and Marwalk.
Yeah. And how, I'm thinking it's only been a few years there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we were over off Peterson Road on next to York Machine
Okay.
for a while, and our landlord, who's Ripple Rock Restorations, they had the building where we are now and the building that we were in over there, and they had their operations split between the two buildings, and they wanted to centralize, and they wanted to be there where we
Yes.
were.
Yes.
So they made it, I guess you could say, possible for us to purchase the building. That was an incentive for us to move over there because we didn't want to move.
Yeah.
You can imagine what kind of an endeavor that would be.
Yeah.
So, as I say, they made it possible for us to
Yeah.
get a mortgage with the bank and that sort of thing. So right now, we're paying a little bit less than we would have been paying in rent. So it was a good economic move for us as far as the purchasing rather than renting is concerned. And it was an interesting phenomenon because as soon as we moved, or people heard we were moving, different tradespeople and contractors and so on in town came and said, "How can we help you?" And as a matter of fact, one individual, or you recall, Diane, came in because when we got the building, the roof was leaky. And we knew that, and that was understood. There was no subterfuge or anything like that.
Yeah.
And a gentleman walked in, and one neat November day when we have a little bit of rain here, and we had a few pails here and there, and he said, "You need a new roof." And we said, "Yes, that's in our budget plan for the future, but not right now." And he said, "Well, you really need a new roof now." And not to go on and on about it, but he basically said, "Go and get 3 estimates and let me know."
Huh.
And we did, and he came in and wrote us a check.
Yeah. How has the new location been for the users? About the same, I would think.
Well, it's difficult.
Oh, how so?
Parking.
Ah,
That's always a problem. And we have the gymnastics right across the road from us.
right.
And they're in and out all the time. So we really can't use their parking lot.
Yeah.
A lot of our volunteers and directors who are there, particularly on Wednesdays, today is our
Yeah.
distribution
Yeah,
day.
we're recording on a Wednesday, and I'd hope to have manager Debbie Willis with us, but of course it's distribution day.
Anyway,
So, thank you, Debbie. But
A lot of us park over on, in the Eagles parking lot. We
Yes.
have an arrangement with them.
oh, that's
So,
okay.
But
yeah,
the clients coming in, they're on both sides of the street, and
yeah.
it's a problem.
I occasionally drive by accident, and I see quite a lineup out there. Yeah.
Yes, it continues.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons we're doing a show today on the food bank was a little headline that I saw. The Courier of February 25, I think the Mirror had something too. Food bank needs your help to keep its doors open. And then an editorial, amidst a growing economy, a cloud appears overhead. And the letter was signed by Lynn as president. And apart from that, you're also retiring, I gather, from this.
Yes, after, 30 years, it's time for new blood
Yeah.
and new ideas, new leadership. We need that. After a few years, 30 for example, you start to get a little bit stale.
Yeah.
And so we do need new leadership. And I've got other obligations as well and it's time for me to move on.
Yeah. Diane, are you staying on?
I am staying on as a volunteer, but I'm resigned from
The
the
board.
directors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Are,
Not
Lynn,
resigned, retiring.
are you going to stay on the board, Lynn, or just it's
No,
time to go?
I'll be leaving the board.
Yeah.
It's difficult when you have been the mayor, for example,
I was going to
and
ask
then you become a councillor. It's
Yeah.
it's a little bit difficult. You have to learn to keep your mouth shut, and I'm not very good at that.
Well, when were you mayor? Just refresh me,
2002 to 2005.
right, and you stayed active with the food bank through those 3 years?
Did
Yeah, yeah,
there wasn't really any conflict. There were a couple times when I recused myself from some kind of a vote that had
Yeah.
to do with property or something,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and so on. But there was
Yeah.
really no conflict.
Well, in case I forget later, thank you, and actually thank you both for the many, many years you've done there. It's obviously a very valuable community asset.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a valuable community asset. And we, well, Diane has the statistics as well as the rest of us, but we're feeding up to 2,200 people a month. Not
Yeah.
always, but anywhere between 15 and 2,200. It varies depending upon the month and I guess the weather has something to do with it too, to be quite honest about it. And it's tough to try and supply or satisfy the need. Right now, I would say, and Diane, correct me if I'm wrong, but this has probably been the toughest year financially that we've had since back in
Oh,
the
yes.
beginning years.
Really?
And it's not that people aren't giving, but this year there are two things. Number one, and you know this as well as I do, utilities are going like this. And we have 15 or 18 freezers and so on, and you can imagine what our hydro bill is like.
Yeah.
It's astronomical. And when you give me $100 for the food bank, let's say, you want it to go to feed hungry people. You don't want it to go to pay a hydro bill.
Yeah.
Like, that's not why you're doing it. And
Yeah.
so we do have
But
gaming.
you have to do that to keep the food safe.
Well, that's right. We do have gaming
store it.
funds.
Yeah.
And that's been our mainstay.
Yeah,
Well, not our mainstay. It's been our main financial stay.
yeah,
The grocery stores, of course, they supply us with product and so on, and they're very, very generous. They're very generous.
yeah,
Target, for example, is going to be a loss for us because they came into the community, and when you're coming into the community that's established, you're into getting market share.
Right.
And so you're taking it away from the other stores. So what they did is they overstocked. And you have to do that. I mean,
Yes.
it's just and of course, we were the beneficiary of that.
yes,
So them leaving is going to, it's going to affect us, no question
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say
Tough year.
is that this year particularly, there have been a number of other nonprofits or charitable organizations. Hospice is a good example, and what a cause, what a great cause, and it's moving ahead rapidly. Everybody's delighted about it, and the amount of charitable funding in the community is limited.
Right.
And so you add another one, and that diminishes everybody else. So it's just been a really tough year for us.
Yeah.
And not as far as contributions from the grocery stores and shoppers and the rest of the drugstores are concerned,
Yeah.
but as far as that cash is concerned, that cash flow.
Right.
And so what we've been trying to do is to establish with people what they do on one of your competitors, PBS.
Oh, yeah?
Where,
The monthly giving.
that's right.
I thought you were going to say political parties. they love to get you in on the monthly donations
But what
too.
what
And
we're
churches.
trying to do is that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great for somebody to give $100 or $50 or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
but that's a one-time thing, makes
Yeah.
makes a person feel good.
Hard to budget
and,
with, though.
That's right, it's very difficult. So
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do, and we have a bank account at every financial institution in
Oh.
Campbell River. So the general public can go in and say, I want to give $5 a month to the food bank, or 10 or 100,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the teller will be able to do that. Just
Yeah.
they can set it up like right now and make it easy. And then what
Yeah.
we do is we ask the people that are doing that to let us know, because we can't get that information from the bank. That's privacy.
Yeah.
So they let us know, and then at the end of the year we give them a receipt
Tax
for
receipt.
tax
Yeah.
tax receipt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but that's what we're trying to establish now to get that cash flow going.
Yeah.
Because gaming, as much as we have asked for an increase, and back in the good old days, we had a pretty substantial contribution from gaming because we fit the profile.
Right.
And then in 2006, they cut us back
Yeah.
by half.
Did the chances strike cut in at all? Or is it not, doesn't work
not,
that way?
Not that we're aware of,
Yeah.
not that we're aware of, because
Yeah.
our funding comes from the province.
Right.
Well, the Gaming Commission of the province.
Yeah.
And back when we all agreed that we would have gaming in the province, you recall, that was back in the NDP government days, and the take at that time, or the apportioning of the take, was that charitable organizations would get approximately 43% of the take.
Yeah.
Well, most recently it's down to 11.
Oh, I was going to
And
guess
so-
25.
So that, and I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
It's a great source of funding for the government,
Yeah.
and there's no pain involved.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Whereas when they raise
Yeah.
your taxes up a little bit, you probably
Yeah.
holler.
Yeah. Well,
So-
me less than some others.
But as I say, we're trying to get that
Yeah.
sustainable kind of cash
Yeah.
flow,
Yeah.
and it's
Now-
difficult, but it's coming.
Yeah. Now, you've got an annual meeting coming up, I believe?
Yes.
May 5th,
May the 5th.
yes. And
So, and whereabouts will that be?
At the food bank.
At the food
Yeah.
bank. Okay. So, folks, May the 5th, put it on your calendar and step in there.
We're
Now,
always
there's,
looking for more volunteers and,
Yeah.
and board directors as well,
yeah,
because we're all getting a little bit older and we need that youth.
yeah. What do the volunteers do?
Oh, Diane, you know more
Yes.
about it than I do,
Well,
really.
there's several jobs, and what I do, I'm at the front desk, and along with other members, and we check people in, which is a real privilege, by the way. It's a real privilege to work at the food bank. And then volunteers distribute the food bags, and we have a shelf with treats that people can choose 2 treats. And they also stock the shelves on off days, and that is a huge,
Yeah.
huge job.
We,
And
have
what-
we especially have treats after Halloween and Easter and things
Exactly.
like. And,
Oh,
Yeah.
we're still giving out
Yeah.
Santa Claus,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yummies.
I gather driving around, I was going to say running around, but to the donor grocery stores too is volunteers, or is that the staff?
That's partly staff,
Yeah.
and partly volunteers.
Precisely.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, big jobs. Um, Now, there's so many things I'd like to ask about, but you know, you mentioned you check people in.
Yes.
Are there many abusers of the system?
Probably no more than any other, charitable
Right.
work. But there are some, and there's also a lot of bonhomie among the clients because they wait in line a long time, they get
Yeah.
to know each other. But generally speaking, there's an awful lot of working poor people in our community,
Yeah,
and they do not abuse.
yeah, Yeah.
It's the same thing in any organization, John, that I call them the one percenters.
yeah,
And whether it's income tax or the food bank or something else, there's somebody who's going to manipulate the system
You got an angle.
to their benefit.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if you change your rules
yeah,
to catch them, and it affects the other 98 or 99%, then you better
Yeah.
not change your rules.
That's the debate in Vancouver about transit, and
Absolutely.
yeah.
it's
Absolutely.
and it's also one of my exes was in the social services industry, and at some point it becomes cost ineffective to try and go out and catch the cheaters.
Yeah.
You have to do some, but at some point you're never going to stop it all. But amongst the users, how many of them are low-income families, and like how many of them would be single, middle-aged? How many homeless? I don't know. What kind of the profile or demographics of the users
Well,
could
first
you give
of all,
us?
the information that we gather from them, that Diane's and Yana and a couple of the other directors are involved in, there's only a certain. We don't need to know your whole personal history. We need to know your social security number, and basically, we need to know how many children you've got, if indeed you have children, and how many times you've been in to the food bank, because you're only allowed to come in once a month. On Fridays and Mondays, you can come in and if you're in dire straits, to get a can of soup or stew or something like that, and some buns or bread, whatever extra we have. But the distribution is once a month. It's not meant to feed everybody.
So it's not
meant-
every week?
No.
No.
Well, we do it every week, but we
Yeah.
don't have the,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons why we have to record that information.
Right.
And indeed, if you have children or a partner that's disabled or something like that, then we need to know that information, because there is where some people try to beat the system.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
do record that. I'm sorry, Diane, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
but,
No, that's good information.
So we
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
But as I say, it's not meant to feed everybody. It's just meant to help out a little bit.
Yeah.
And as far as the working poor is concerned, we're getting more and more of them all the time, because some of our clients, as Diane will say, they're couples coming in. They're both working,
Yeah.
they've got children, and they just can't make it go. For
Well,
example, if there's a birthday, we've managed to do things. We got a birthday coming up, and we just haven't got what it needs to buy a cake. Well, we get cakes from the bakeries, and
Yeah.
that helps.
Yeah, yeah. Did you notice a jump in the user numbers when the pulp mill closed?
Not really.
No,
Not
I
really.
wouldn't think directly,
Because,
but
see-
indirectly perhaps it hurt the economy.
Maybe. See, those folks, most of them were highly skilled in some way,
Yeah.
and they went off to Fort Mac like right now,
Yeah.
and get
Yeah.
good jobs. And a lot of them, that's their lifestyle now.
Yeah. So there has been an uptick though in the use. So what's driving it?
Unemployment
Yeah,
and low employment.
Yeah,
Minimum
underemployment.
wage.
yeah.
It's hard to have a
Yeah.
family and
Rising
rent a house.
utility costs.
Yes, and rising food costs too.
Yeah,
So it isn't easy to make a go of it at this time in history
Yeah.
in Campbell River.
or anywhere really.
Really, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. What does the city do for support?
This year, for the first time, we've never asked the city for anything except for property tax exemption, which
Right.
all charitable organizations, I was going to say are entitled to. They're not entitled to, but at the discretion of the city.
Yeah.
And they've been good to us in that regard.
Yeah.
This year for the first time, and it was driven by our utility costs. We went to them and asked them if they could help us with our utility costs. And indeed, very quickly, they did.
Just in the last budget.
Just in this, yes,
Yeah.
past budget, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's good.
And that's not going to be an ongoing thing, it's just a one-time
Yeah,
thing. And
yeah.
as I say, this has been a really tough year for us.
Yeah. Now, I know the grocery stores have been very good, and all of them actually. Perhaps some somewhat better than others, but I don't know if there's a grocery store that deliberately does not participate. But I encountered a situation in a shall remain nameless grocery store recently, where there was a new manager throwing out all of the hot chickens that had been sitting for too long. And I also got some feedback that the type of bread they were donating was not what the clients wanted. You know, this is a news kind of a show,
Yeah.
trying to be a little bit edgy. But what do you think about those situations?
Well, first of all, as far as chickens or whatever, barbecued chickens, for example,
Yeah.
that's one of the things that we encourage the grocery stores to give us at Christmas time,
Yeah.
because there are lots of folks, I mean, we want to give a turkey. That's what
Yeah,
we
yeah.
want to do. Well, there's lots of our clients don't have the capability, they don't have the facility, they don't have the training to be able to cook a turkey.
Yeah.
So we really encourage them to give us barbecued chickens or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
But there's
it
a
has to-
food
it-
safety issue, isn't there?
Well, there is, but it
Yes.
depends on the day of the week too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because if it happens on Tuesday, we distribute on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And we can pick them up on Wednesday morning early
Right,
and
right.
distribute them right there. So
Yeah.
that's something we can do. But by and large, we can't handle perishables.
yes,
Well, there's the food safe thing, but if there was any possibility that there was going to be some kind of, that something would be tainted in some way,
Yeah.
we just can't handle that. We
Yeah.
just can't handle it.
yeah.
And-
Now,
but there are others, Lighthouse, others that do
Okay.
have the
Oh,
ability
that's
to do that,
interesting, yeah.
who feed every day.
yeah. Now, stale dated food is an issue too. We have
Right.
Laura and I have a situation where we have some old pickles and, you know, there's other situations, I guess say the Mormons, you know, they keep a year's food and maybe some of it's starting to go stale.
Right.
Can that still be donated? Because it's not going to make you sick,
Yes.
but it's just not top quality anymore.
It's past its best before date.
Yeah.
I
But
won't
we
make
have
any
a
comments
shelf.
about people in that regard.
Oh,
Oh, come on.
we're past our best before
You
date.
can come on next year. You'll be here.
We have a shelf.
Yes.
And it is specifically for out-of-date goods. There is a sign, you take it at your own risk.
Right.
And we mark the cans too. So
Yeah.
unless it's a long time ago,
Yeah.
we give it out.
Yeah.
Or people choose it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Good.
then we have the shelf with all the exotic stuff on it.
Yes.
It's interesting that things that don't go at the store, they won't restock them.
Yes.
And artichoke hearts and neat stuff like that. And so we
Yeah.
do get some exotic stuff from time
Yeah.
to time.
I'm trying to think of some of the weird candy that I'll never buy. How about the farms? I gather some of them are donating, but maybe more could be done there. I don't
That
know.
would be good in season.
And backyard gardens.
And there was a time when people especially planted gardening. I
Yeah.
mean gardens, vegetables.
Mac
Yeah.
McDougall has always been a supporter of the food bank.
Okay.
He is a consummate gardener and always has a huge garden, and he usually sends us things not really perishable, things like, well, for example, potatoes, and I don't know whether he gave us potatoes or not, but that sort of thing, that cabbages, that sort of thing that has a shelf life
Yeah.
that you can keep for a week
Yeah.
or two, you know.
Yeah.
And we do have coolers where we can keep stuff in coolers,
Yeah.
but cooked, processed stuff, very difficult for us to handle
Yeah.
that.
How about fish? Now, I've got a friend who's a really ace fisherman. He could, every time he goes, he catches. And he mostly turns them back, of course. But are you equipped to take fresh fish out of the river?
We can, yes.
yeah.
We have a cooler, as
Yeah.
Lynn mentioned, and we can also freeze them
Right.
and offer them
Yeah.
to the clients.
And I guess seafood too then?
Right.
We've got a walk-in freezer that all these things have been donated.
Yeah.
And we've got a walk-in freezer. Actually, we're going to have another one
Yeah.
as well.
Oh, good.
So fish, that sort of thing is,
Yeah.
certainly we can handle
Well, I'm
that.
glad I asked.
Yes.
We're not close to being out of time, but time is going. Are there some things that concerns we haven't talked about, Diane, that you'd like to raise?
Well, I think Lynn has very well and colorfully stated
We're going to miss him.
our needs, in particular the cost of running
Yes.
the food bank. Other needs, we could use a generator.
Oh,
Yes, for, if the power fails, there's a
Yes.
lot of
that's a really good
freezer
point.
equipment.
To the point, I'm going to make a note of it. I might write about it on my website. We'll see.
We know that if power goes off for a few hours, that's not a problem. You just don't open the freezers, you just leave
Yeah,
them, and even for a day.
Well, the power never goes off here now that Hydro's
Well,
doing such a good job.
we're getting closer to the numbers of those 1 in 500 or 1
Yeah,
in whatever it is.
Yeah.
They keep diminishing all the time.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, every year it's another 1 in 500. It's not 1 in 449 now,
Yeah.
or 499. So, but that's what as a matter of fact, I was talking to folks at the hospital the other day. Well, what are you going to do with your backup generators? Because the new hospital will have, it'll probably have their new generators.
idea.
And I've got a request in with them. What are you going to do with it? Because we
Yeah.
could sure use it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we don't need it, but,
Yeah.
and again, we
Well,
have
lights and
tradespeople who
so
will
forth.
maintain these things for us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Good stuff.
And
Well,
Lynn is, pardon me.
go ahead.
But Lynn has been wonderful at his connecting
Yeah.
in the community.
I
and
am retiring, Diane.
Seeking help. No, you've been
I'll
marvelous.
bet you that he's still going to do it on a volunteer ad hoc basis. He said, "Hey, I was talking to somebody."
Oh, yes, yes. Just
That's
who he is.
Well, there's another talk about, folks. Thank you both for coming in, and best wishes to the food bank. And if you have a bank account, you can make donations at your bank to the food bank, and of course you can also drop off food at their location on 16th and Marwalk. So thank you, volunteers. Thank you, Shaw, for doing this, and thank you, viewers, too. There's Talk About.